Welcome to 2025. Inside the Hive is back. It is me, James Plowright. I'm joined by Sam Dracula. We've had 3 weeks off. The Hornets have yet to win a game during our 3-week hiatus. Still waiting for the first win of 2025. But today's show, we are talking the biggest storylines from the last 2 or 3 weeks. Because even though they're not winning a lot of games, a lot of stuff has happened. And it's important that we don't just skip over it. We have to go back. We have to look at it. Then we take a look forward towards the second half of the pod, looking towards some 2026 predictions of what we think will happen with this very sorry Charlotte Hornets franchise, which is doing its best to embarrass itself and set a new low every time. But Sam, despite the Hornets basketball, did the Hornets basketball performances ruin your Christmas?
No, unfortunately. Fortunately not. I had pretty low expectations. We talked about how many wins we'd expect them to have during the stretch. I thought for sure they would beat the Wizards.
At least one of them. I think we both agreed they beat them once. You play them twice. Even if you don't turn up for one, you beat them the other one. And
that's outrageous.
They had the players only meeting before the Wizards game, which is great timing because you're thinking, look, bounce back with a win. The vibes are good again. The players only meeting worked, and they lost the Wizards without Kyle Kuzma.
Yeah, it's really bad. One thing that is getting me through all of the tough times is the new LiAngelo Ball single. Have you heard it?
No, I've seen some discussion online about
it's everywhere.
Yeah, I've not. It's I'm someone who it won't be my type of music.
I don't think the joke is it's music from the 2002 era. So okay. I don't think it's anybody's type, but it's going off in NBA locker rooms. News reporters are mentioning it. It's getting some traction. So there's some positive from a former Hornet out there. Someone's winning at least.
Swarm, former Swarm member.
You got the summer league time. You put this time in. Okay. We got a little bit of it.
Very kind of you to bestow that honor upon LiAngelo Ball.
You got to find the wins where you can find them.
Yeah. Look, to start the show today, we're doing a sort of storylines draft of what do we think the biggest storylines from the last 3 weeks? What are the key things that we need to touch on? We're not going to touch on all 9 losses or 10 losses. I think we predicted the last time we spoke how many wins before we next spoke. I went for 4. God, I'm stupid. You went for 3, I believe.
Yeah.
And look, in our defense, and I said this to you before the pod, if you'd have told us that LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller were going to combine for 3 appearances across all those games, we would have revised our guesses down. I think we at that time we thought Brandon Miller was going to and LaMelo Ball were going to be around. They weren't. They've had a little bit of a break over the same like us as well.
Oh man.
But Sam, what do you think? I'll give you first pick and a little storyline draft. What are you picking is the biggest storyline from the last 2-3 weeks?
So you mentioned it earlier. I'm going with the players only meeting. The report came out, and I don't know if it was the next day, but it was definitely the next game where it was kind of downplayed by Gibson and Bridges, saying, we're just trying to rally the troops a little bit, trying to get on track. It wasn't that big of a deal. And maybe it should have been a bigger deal because it didn't work. And the Hornets have a rookie head coach who is, like a lot of the players, they're learning on the job. And I think everyone is due a little bit of grace during all of this. But when you think about that point of the season, 7 losses ago-ish, 5 losses ago, when the players were like, all right, hey guys, we got to get our act together. And then boom, 5-game losing streak. That's not a sequence of events that anyone should be happy about. And I'm curious if they have a bigger deal players only meeting now or soon, because it's not looking good. I know the guys have been out, they're back, but you gotta do something. Something has to happen here.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. A lot of these Hornets players, they are so conditioned to losing. Mm-hmm. It is just their experience playing in the NBA as a member of the Charlotte Hornets is you turn up, you play, you're competitive for about the first 2 weeks of the season, and then you go in a tailspin and you get ready for next year. And I'm just, that is so hard to rip out of people. I don't like at this point, what does another players meeting do? Then people just start rolling their eyes at it. I just don't know anymore. I don't know. I don't think the players only meeting is the cure to this team's issues. I think they have roster building issues. I think they have some play tendency issues. I think there are some people with their eyes out the door right now who know they're probably not going to be here after the deadline, and I think they are playing like it. So I don't know. I mean, one thing I will say is this year's players only meeting. Well, it came 3 weeks before last year's. January 15th, Terry Rozier called the players only meeting. So you want to talk about hitting a new low? It's worse than last year when the players only meetings come 3 weeks earlier. So, maybe next year they can try push it, I don't know, maybe into February. That'd be great.
Yeah, switch it up, boys. Switch it up. Oh, man. What's the last year where the Bulls had like two in like a week or two span?
Yep.
It's never like it's you never want to. It's like a catch-22 type of thing where you're glad the players are trying to take accountability over the situation, but you also don't want to be in a situation where the players have to do that type of thing. And it's a real shame that the Hornets are back in this position again. And I think this better be the last of it this year,
well,
at least.
I might have said this before on the pod, and I said it in the preseason. There is a very narrow path to success this year. Mm-hmm. If they were as bad as last year, people are going to be furious. If they'd been successful, made the play-in, made the playoffs, they would have lost their first-round pick. There was a very narrow path that this team had to walk where you were like feisty, interesting, and young, but bad, but competitive enough to be in most games. And they walked that walk pretty well for the first half of the season so far. We talked about how feisty they were in that Knicks game when they were like they kept staying in games that they had no right to be in. And then the last 15 games, they've just looked like the lifeless, senseless Charlotte Hornets again. And the big thing is, it's actually on offense where they look completely lost. This team over the last 2 weeks, 30th in offense by some way, 6th in defense. Right. So now part of that is because LaMelo Ball's not been playing, Brandon Miller's not been playing, and instead you've been playing like the likes of Cody Martin more minutes and stuff like that. And you've probably played bigger, you've played slower for that same reason as well. And that's helped boost your numbers a little bit. But it's not actually like defensive effort, I don't think is necessarily the issue. I think it's their lack of offensive identity and production that has people really getting frustrated at the moment, which if you told me at the start of the year, one of the offense or defense was going to be ranked 30th, it would have been the defense I picked, not the other way around. So credit Charles Lee. He has got them playing a little bit on that end, but it just doesn't feel like it in a lot of these games, especially when you're giving up, big points to the Wizards and to the Bulls.
Yeah, to your point, dead last in field goal percentage, last 10 games. Like that's just we're only up from there, but like it's such a brutal place to be.
And it's not just missing shots, right? I've seen stretches of Hornets basketball before, and I've pushed back against the narrative, and I'm like, look, on open threes they're shooting 21%. Like that's not going to continue. Mm-hmm. The Hornets look completely unorganized, slow to get into stuff. They are over dribbling, trying to beat one-on-one guys one-on-one and not able to play by in isolation. They just don't have anywhere to go. Cody Martin ends up with the ball with 5 seconds on the shot clock way too often. Yes, LaMelo has been out, and that has hurt some of this. But these are even still issues when LaMelo has been in as well. Okay, my next storyline in the draft. The fans are beginning to turn on Charles Lee. Right. Already, it's not taken long. I'm seeing the Charles Lee coaching buzzwords of competitive joy and obsessed with daily improvement. you know when a coach reaches that point where fans just use all their terminology, sarcasm against them? Is that, oh yeah, is that your competitive joy, Coach Lee?
Yeah.
How's that daily improvement going? Like, that's what we're kind of getting right now from Hornets fans. And look, that's just like classic fan behavior, searching for a scapegoat. Look, I don't think he has had as good a second half of the season as had of the first, but I just refuse to believe that this is a Charles Lee issue, really. I mean, he's frustrated. You can see it. Post that Houston game, he said, and I quote, "We got to play the guys who actually embody those things going forward, those things that we're about, and change is needed." Right? That's what he said after the Houston game. Now, not a lot of people have been healthy enough for there to be a lot of change since then, but we saw Nick Richards get benched in the second half of the game against the Cavaliers the other night. We've seen changes with Vasim Micic, KJ Simpson, Seth Curry in and out of the lineup a little bit as well. No major changes yet, but there's definitely some frustration. You can see he's even got the gray hair stripe. Charles Lee didn't have the gray hair stripe at the start of the season, did he? You've noticed
I don't think
right?
so. No.
You've noticed the gray hair stripe on his forehead.
It's taxing on you. It's like the presidency. Like it just the taxes on you.
It's definitely. He's looking like he's aged a day already. Aged a year already. It's definitely a concern. But I don't want to be the guy who always defends the coach, but I really just don't think this is a Charles Lee issue.
I mean, I agree, and this is one of the things why I thought this team's absolute ceiling was an 11 seed is because there's a rookie head coach here. And I know he's had success as an assistant in 2 different spots. And that's great. He had a great resume coming into this. But I think allowing him to learn like the other guys are learning is important. And fans, I will never tell a fan to not be upset or aggravated with how things are going, because that's the whole point about being a fan. But I will say he's not doing himself many favors in these post-game interviews that are posted to the Hornets YouTube channel, because they're not media questions. The Hornets are posting his interviews with Shannon, and it's like they're very short, very bland, really generic, and the comments kind of reflect the lack of, I don't know, for lack of a better word, meat in what he's delivering, and at least what's being put out there by the Hornets YouTube team. And so I would prefer if he would lose his cool a little bit too, by the way. Like this, like even-handed stuff is I think is important. It's an attribute, but when you go on a losing streak like this, I would love to see him lose his mind a little bit on the sidelines or in an interview, just to show that some fire, and that could hopefully lead to something else, a different result here.
Yeah, I mean, look, we all enjoyed the Steve Clifford monologues that, we got over the last couple of years in his post games. And he would do that, and he would get texts, and he would get frustrated. I just don't think you can put that on if it's not you, because players will fucking smell it. If they smell you like pretending to be angry or to get angry to try and get a reaction, they'll know the type of person you are. And I just don't know if Charles Lee is that type of person. And if you aren't, then you can't fake it. You can't fake it till you make it. But I do understand about the lack of, I think part of the reason is, like you say, it's all very scripted media content, right? Yeah. You're not getting people really pressing for answers, and you get that more in the home games because there's press there, and they do press a little bit. And you got that in the Houston game, right? When they're pressing, saying, what do you need to see? And then you started to get a little bit of, you could see the frustration in Charles Lee in that Houston game. But this is a long season. We're still, are we at the halfway mark? We might be at the half. I don't even know if we are yet. And if you start firing some of your last bullets in the chamber too early, at this point in the season, what card do you play next? What do you pull? So I still understand that he's trying to be consistent with who he is and what his message is. I also understand why when you hear a coach use those catchphrases all the time, competitive joy, daily improvement, and the product on the floor is so disappointing. And it's not just this year. It's not just last year. It's the 2 decades before that. Mm-hmm. you start to become cynical about it quite quickly. But there's a difference between like joking about it between one another and then actually thinking that like Charles Lee preaching being obsessed with daily improvement is actually the problem, because it's not. But I will say, and to your point about Lee's struggles a little bit, I do feel like other teams have really scouted the Hornets offense and just taken, they know exactly what they want to get to, right? Which is creating open looks for LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller from three. And they're doing everything they can to take that away. And when teams do that, what you then rely on is the players on the floor using their basketball instincts and IQ to punish and adjust, right? So, for example, when people are playing high or they're top blocking LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, so they can't come up in the screen, like both the player with the ball, both the player off the ball need to realize what's that happening in real time and go, if they're top blocking me, then I need to cut back door, or I need to swing it to the other side and then come off another screen so that they can't do that. And you need to be able to like make those decisions, adjustments in like the blink of an eye, right? And what I see when I watch the Hornets is, they're taking that away from us. Where do we go now? What do I do? I might give up on this play. And they can't take advantage of what the other team are giving up to take away what they're trying to do. And like, you could say, well, that's the coach to be on the floor, but like, a coach can only give you principles and foundations of play, and then it's up for players to go execute. And I just don't think the Hornets have the basketball instinct and IQ across the board, across the entire roster, all together, to be able to adjust on the fly and to change and to adapt to what teams are doing to them. They just look like they're stuck in one mode. And that is, I think, just a roster construction issue.
Yeah, which I'm blanking on it, but the game where the Hornets drew up a perfect play off after the timeout, the LaMelo lobs to Mark Williams, and then to tie the game, I think, and then the other team scored, and then
the overtime game? Was that the overtime game?
I think so, where Brandon Miller shot the ball with like
against
6 seconds left. Yeah. There's so many losses, hard to, you know what I mean? In that moment, it's like you have LaMelo Ball, a top tier passer, Mark Williams, a top tier athlete and big man, and you see how effortlessly these lobs are to Mark Williams, like how you can go to that. And I don't know why we don't see more of it. It's there. Unless you're playing like Wemby or even Alex Sarr, who's a nice athlete.
Evan
Mobley.
I was worried.
You can get away with forcing lobs to Mark Williams on a more regular basis. And I don't get why that's not more part of this offense.
So I've had a theory on this for a while, is that I think the idea of a lob in the pick and roll is like the most overrated play in basketball. For the reason being, like, even the teams that are incredible at it, even like the Chris Paul, DeAndre Jordan Clippers, if you remember them, right? Lob City, they average like 2 alley-oops a game. It looks incredible when it happens and always looks so easy. Mm-hmm. But for it to actually happen, so much has to go right. And the pushback is no, but it's not when it happens. It's the threat of it happening that affects everything else. And I do understand that. But if you mess that up, if the catch isn't quite right or the pass gets deflected, it is 2 points going the other way, because you have both your point guard and your center who are committed under the rim. It's going to probably be a live ball turnover, and it's then going to be like a 5-on-4-on-3 going back the other way. And I think that's the risk with it. Like, if you start just trying to force it, teams are going to read it so quickly, adjust, and all of a sudden, like, you're just going to be playing transition defense. So I think that's why you don't see it more. I mean, look, Cleveland just took it away completely. Completely. Whereas, like you say, against the Bulls, that was a really impressive performance from Mark Williams. And I thought they absolutely killed Chicago. Both Richards and Williams killed Chicago doing that exact thing. But I think that's a little bit schematic as well.
Yeah. I mean, I don't need Lob City. I just need Trae Young to Capella levels. Just having that option to go down when the shot's not there it it seems like it would be something that would be a great way to get Mark Williams involved and build his confidence up and put pressure on the other team in the lane. Because if the Hornets fall back once everyone's back and they go back to becoming a super 3 heavy team, I would be concerned about Mark Williams and the other bigs feeling disengaged as only rebounders.
You see, I didn't see that at all. I think they've really fed Mark Williams. Like, I think they've gone to him quite a lot. And when they've not, it's when I think he's got a matchup like Evan Mobley, where he's uncomfortable. But that's just my opinion. Give us your next draft from storylines. What's next?
So I'm gonna go the other way. I'm gonna go positive. LaMelo Ball leading All-Star fan voting.
How about that?
Does it last? Like, how long do you think? Because does the All-Star game have a minimum requirement like the NBA, a minimum game played requirement?
Nope.
I don't believe it does. It's just the NBA awards, right?
It does not. And for those who don't know, the All-Star voting, the starters are decided by 50% fan vote, then 25% player vote, and 25% media vote. Now I'm going to tell you how this is going to go. LaMelo Ball's probably going to finish, I reckon, top of the fan vote. I think he'll do okay in the players vote too. I think I've heard enough players over the years talk about their respective game. The media are not going to vote for LaMelo Ball at all. At all. It's going to be, even though the advanced stats are actually pretty friendly for LaMelo Ball compared to people like Cade Cunningham, it's just not going to matter because of the record. And the media obsess over records, and the media, they don't like LaMelo Ball's game. Let's just say how it is. Like, I've heard multiple Bill Simmons, Nate Duncan, Sam Vecini have all said they're just not LaMelo Ball guys. They don't like his style of basketball, and I'm sure there's several others like him. The 7 reserves are then selected by the coaches. And that will be interesting again. But I think he has a chance to make it as a starter because of that 50% fan vote, like you said. And I do think he has a chance to remain up there, even if he doesn't play as well as he did earlier in the season, because he's really freaking popular on his highlights. He's really popular amongst kids, his shoes. Like, he is a super popular guy in the younger NBA bubble rather than the NBA analyst bubble. But that's not what matters for the fan vote.
No, I mean, and if any player is built for the All-Star game, like LaMelo Ball is designed for an All-Star game. It's better for, I know they're retooling it. I think, I'm so anti-All-Star game in general. I haven't watched it in probably 6 years. It's just not, it's not for me. It's not for me.
Nor me. I don't want you to do that. I agree.
Also,
meaningless basketball.
Same with the dunk contest, low-key. But LaMelo, it'd be great to have some Hornets representation All-Star weekend. Don't get me wrong. But it's something we talked about going into the season, about the potential for a Hornet to be in the All-Star game. And if anyone is going to do it, it's going to be him. And he's on track. And it's some rare positive news for the Hornets. If
he doesn't start, I don't think he'll make it. If he gets the fan vote and he gets in through the fan and the player vote, but if he doesn't start, I don't think he gets selected by the coaches. I just can't imagine that there's 29 coaches around the league looking at the LaMelo Ball's film this year and going, yeah, I really like the shots that he's taking. Like, I just don't see it. Do you want to hear my theory of another reason why I think LaMelo Ball might be top?
Let me know.
Have you gone and voted yet for NBA All-Stars? I don't vote personally, but have you gone on the site where you vote?
No.
Okay. When you go on there, you go and vote now. You press Eastern Conference guards. Guess what it's filtered by for the names that you see first?
Is it alphabetical?
No, it's points per game.
Oh,
guess who leads all Eastern Conference guards in points per game?
I'll do it.
Right. So when you go on Eastern Conference guard, you press the little plus sign to pick who you want to add. LaMelo Ball is the very first name right in front of you. And if you're just going on to vote for, like, I don't know, say you're a Bucks fan and you want to vote for Damian Lillard and Giannis Antetokounmpo, and you don't care who else you vote for, the quickest thing is to click for LaMelo Ball because you don't have to scroll down.
Yeah.
And that could be the other reason why LaMelo Ball has surprisingly finished first. I mean, I knew he was popular among people. It blew my mind when I saw that he was first. Absolutely blew my mind. Like, and I do wonder if that's been a factor.
And one thing, I hope he makes it because I'm sick of the conspiracy theories about the Hornets and LaMelo, like the idea that the Hornets are suppressing LaMelo Ball because Brandon Miller is the new shiny toy. Like that, I see that and it makes me cringe, and I
Has
don't
LaMelo
understand
Ball
it.
looked suppressed to you at any point this year on the court?
That's what I'm saying. Like it doesn't make any sense. I see it, and it's like, oh, the Hornets are pushing Brandon Miller. They don't want LaMelo to succeed. I was like,
oh,
LaMelo Ball is not a victim. All right, he's not a victim here. He's a very good basketball player, and he's maybe an all-star this year. He's not a victim. That's it.
And the way I would say, by the way, like I would say that LaMelo Ball deserved to be an all-star for the first half of his season, and then for the last 10 games that say he's played, he hasn't deserved to be an all-star. And how he plays between now and the end of this month will dictate on which side of the fence I fall. Unless if I think he's like a legitimate, should be all-star worthy player. How about you? Do you think he is an all-star?
Yeah, I do. But I also don't take it that seriously. So I think you get the most exciting guys in there, and he would thrive in that environment. And honestly, he's like, for the beginning of the year, especially, like, he deserves it, man. To your point, just to follow up real quick, we're 34 games into the season. So we're not quite at the halfway point yet.
Oh, God, there's so many more games to watch. It hurts my head. Fuck.
We're not halfway done yet.
Oh, God. Why do I look forward to the season starting? And then when it starts, I just look forward to ending. This is what you've done to me, Hornet. Right, I'm going next. Storyline draft. Mark Williams is back. Let's look at this in two ways. On offense, Mark Williams is back and even better. Right. The pick and roll chemistry he's shown with LaMelo Ball has been, I think, pretty encouraging. That Chicago game especially was one of the best games he's played, his best game of this year by far. He was really making Vucevic struggle on the interior. And just like his finishing package looks more advanced this year than it has in other years. Like there's been like dunks and layups and putbacks, but he had like a really long Euro step kind of slow down where he took off from like just inside the 3-point line, which I really liked in transition. His hands, incredible. Like he catches passes which are around his ankles and then just like goes up and dunks them. He has this.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yeah.
The hands compared to Nick Richards is so jarring, bro.
You can throw a completely different range of passes. It's completely different.
It's so jarring. Sorry, continue. Yeah, just to credit Mark Williams and his hands. It's like the difference between his ability to catch a basketball and Nick Richards is night and day.
And I would say Nick Richards is below average and Mark Williams is way above average. So it looks really stark right out on the court. I mean, his alley-oop finishes, he has one or two a game where like he gets pushed in the back or someone fouls him in midair or he's turning around catching a pass that is like off the mark or something. And he just catches it midair and ends up like laying it in or dunking it on the alley-oops. And I swear 90% of centers in the NBA would like fumble the pass. Mm. His catch radius and finishability is ridiculous. And we saw a 3-point attempt, Sam. Did you see that? The late clock 3-point attempt, which, look, it missed, but it looked pretty good. It looked pretty comfortable, I thought. And then finally, we should touch on his assist percentage has tripled, right? They are finding him in the seam, which Charles Lee has talked about all season, is about finding the big in the seam and then making good decisions to cutters, into dribble handoffs, finding people in the corners. Definitely something that the scheme emphasizes. I think Nick Richards even had maybe a career high 5 assists the other night. But he's really growing in terms of being like a good decision maker with the basketball on the offensive end when he's got space around him as well. So offensively, I think Mark Williams, this is the best that he has looked. And now having the minutes limit come off, I'm enjoying seeing that side of things.
Yeah, that's your point I was going to ask about. The minutes, because I think from Washington second Washington game on, where he broke 20 minutes a game, and he's been playing more than 20 minutes consistently ever since. 15.4 points a game, 9.6 rebounds, 1.2 blocks, and he looks like the guy we've been waiting to see. And boy, it would have not like it would have been so. I missed watching him play. I wish he was on the team last year. This is what we've been missing. And I think when he first came back, I was seriously concerned because he looked too timid to me, and I haven't seen that lately. He's more prone to reaching than closing out with his feet, and I feel like this is the most complete Mark Williams we've seen so far since he's been a Hornet.
On both ends or on offense?
I'd say both ends, honestly.
Interesting. You see, for me, the defense has been below average for a starting center in the NBA. I've not been impressed by the defense. Look, I think, like I said, the Chicago game was the best he looked. He had a 2-minute stretch where he had 2 blocks, 1 on the perimeter. He did a great post defensive possession against Vucevic. Had some big contested rebounds. There was a 2-minute stretch where all of a sudden he looked like freaking Hakeem out there. Okay. But otherwise, he let Corey Kispert have a layup on him. He got dunked on by Kobe White. And I'm not just picking examples. This is a recurring theme that guys get into the lane and he's in position to challenge the shot and they're able to finish. And they're players that don't have great athleticism, strength, or finishing package. The players that you'd expect Mark Williams to block. And Charles Lee even said it in one of the games. It was after the second Wizards game. He got asked about Mark Williams, and he even said in an interview, he was like, defensively, we need him to, step up a little bit. We can't be letting Corey Kispert get layups at the rim.
Right.
He even said it. It was like, whoa. In isolations, Mark Williams allowing 78% shooting from field goals. That's not good. Okay. That is code for when people see you, they are getting to where they want to and they're burying him under the basket. There's a lot of those isolations coming against bigs. The overall rim protection stats aren't bad. Apparently he's in the 87th percentile for the opponent rim percentage while he's there, which is really good. That's excellent. But that just does not match the eye test at all for me. So, look, Charles Lee said defensive timing is something that still needs to come back for Mark. He said that numerous times, and I completely agree with him. But I was thinking Mark Williams was going to be better on defense and offense, and I'm pretty worried it's just going to be maybe the other way around. And this team needs really good defenders next to LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller. And Mark Williams might be just okay for a big. And while he'll still be a really good player, at some point you run out of positions on the court who can be excellent defenders when you're playing, Brandon Miller, LaMelo Ball, Mark Williams. I just hope he can bring it back, but he's not been the defensive difference maker that I would hope to have seen.
That's fair. I mean, he got bullied by Sar and oh my goodness, oh no, the other big in Washington who's played on everything.
Valanciunas.
Yeah, Valanciunas. But I looked at those as like you mentioned, Sar is a crazy athlete and Valanciunas is a big dude, and so
he should not be getting bullied by Alex Sar. He's a rookie, twin, lanky, not strong. That should not be happening. Valanciunas, that's fair enough. But Alex Sar, there's no excuse for that one, in my opinion.
But their body types aren't that different, Sar and Mark Williams.
Yeah, but Sar's a rookie. Mark Williams has been in the league for 3 years.
Technically, yeah, but he hasn't played a full season yet.
Maturity-wise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no.
No, that... But it's fine. Look, we can disagree. It's all good. This is not the agreeing pod. This is the disagreeing pod. It's fine.
What do we get into
another thing on here.
Yeah.
Mark Williams, the team are right now worse defensively on the court than when he's off it. So there's another thing for people to think about. They're 2.7 points worse when he is on the court. In conjunction, when you look at Musa Diabate, they're 9.7 points better off when he's on the court. Nick Richards, they're actually even worse. They're plus 5.5. So according to this, Musa Diabate is the best defensive center on the Hornets, which is certainly interesting.
Shouts to Musa, man. Hope he gets a real contract soon.
All right, give us one more of your storylines.
Oh, let's see. I mean, when can a season be over? And is it over now?
Depends what your ambitions are for the season, I guess. If your ambitions are playing, then it's over. Yeah.
When did it end for you? Like I think today as a recording,
when Grant Williams got injured,
because they've won one game since then, right? Like it's bad. That's real. It's bad.
I was the guy saying Grant Williams is super important as much as anyone, and I've seen the stats going around of like the Hornets' record is this with Trey Mann and this with Grant Williams. Look, if Trey Mann and Grant Williams are that important to your team, you're just not very good.
Facts.
Like if they are that important, then you have much bigger issues, and you can't be that dependent on two role players.
Yeah, but
I think the season feels over because it feels now that the team are at times like they look lost. They look out of it, right? Like the bench reactions, have died down. You can hear it in their voices after games from being interviewed, and they sound frustrated, deflated, tired, and defeated. But like we said, there's still over half the season left. There's a lot of basketball left to play, and a lot of guys have got a lot to gain. Nick Smith Jr. just the other day had a really good game off the bench. Like Miles Bridges, can he re-find some resemblance of form? Like, can he prove that he is a part of this team long term? There's so much that these guys should be playing for, but I know that feels difficult when you're losing as many games as they are.
Yeah. There's been a point in the season, the last few here, where I'll text my friends and be like, "You want to go to a Hornets game?" And they're like, I don't think so." And usually, I can talk people into doing it early in the year.
Mm-hmm.
Now it seems, I think it's pretty impossible to get any of my friends to go to a Hornets game right now, unless
because there's no hope.
Someone else is coming into town, like Wemby or something like that. That can get the people I know who have like wives and kids to like drop $80 or whatever to go down to Uptown to watch this team play. And it sucks. I don't know if they can stomach, the fan base can do another season after this one like this. A season over by the new year. Can any fan base fully bounce back from that?
I think
and I know the Hornets have had issues in the past with the Bobcats and all that stuff, and the lifelong fans have been through it all. But genuinely, man, like it's the same thing.
I know what you mean. I think the truth, if you've made it this far and you're a Hornets fan, right? Even if you did switch off next year and you went, no, I can't go through another rebuilding year, I'm out. If you've made it this far, if they were to be competitive again in 2, 3, 4, 5 years, those fans would come back in. And that's what happens, right? Like the time and the space that you give up in your mind and maybe your wallet increases when the team is more relevant. It's a sliding scale for most people. For me and you, it's not. It's just at max 10 out of 10 all the time. even when it's unenjoyable to watch. A lot of people, they don't need to do that. So when it's unenjoyable, when it's boring, when it's disappointing, they just tone it down and they lean into other things. I don't think they're going to be building, many new fans at the moment. You're not going to be attracting many new fans right now because of what's happening. But I feel like you're already at your lowest ebb of like the tide is already out all the way. And it can only come in.
Like even nationally, man, it was a third year in a row where they got kicked off ESPN. It's rough. It's rough. It's tough. I was explaining to my girlfriend like that on the Christmas Day games. Like, there's only one team that's never done this. It's the Hornets, man.
And I don't blame the NBA because, like, when should they put the Hornets on Christmas? Like,
yeah,
when have they had a star or a team that is a Christmas caliber team? Like, it's not like you're the Milwaukee Bucks and you've got Giannis and you're not on Christmas Day. Yeah. You've got to earn it. You don't just. I want the Hornets to earn it. I don't want them just to get given stuff like because people feel sorry for them. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like I will certainly find it very, very difficult if they're going to next year rebuilding. For me, next year should be we are pressing on now. We are trying to be good. We do not want to hear any talk about tanking, about lottery picks. We want to push for the play-in. That is next year. I've always maintained that. I probably have the least faith right now that they will actually be able to be competitive next year. I always thought they'd have a pretty good launch pad into next year. And now I'm beginning to worry that like some of the pieces that I thought you could maybe rely on might not be the right pieces for that. And the East is good. Like, everyone joked the East was terrible at the start of the year. The East was injured at the start of the year. The East isn't bad. It's a bunch of teams, a bunch of good young players.
No, you're 100% right. And it is going to be a long rest of the way. I'm hopeful that this is where I'm at, by the way. I'm hopeful that the Hornets can take a page out of the Detroit Pistons book and create some cap space, bring in a Tim Hardaway-esque player, bring in a Tobias Harris-esque player, pair them with the young kids, and hope to be 500 next year. That's where I'm at. Yeah, that's what the Pistons did. They also made a coaching change, by the way, but that was a whole different situation with Monty Williams.
And Houston did it the year before as well, right? There's all these teams that have been rock bottom, and the Hornets you've felt have always been like had a brighter future than both Houston and Detroit, and then have got lapped by them. And that's what constantly happens: is the Hornets just get lapped by teams who are better than them, get worse, and then get better again, and Charlotte just remain on this like flat, low line. But yeah. Okay. Moving on to the last one of the storyline draft. Sam, do you think the Hornets are tanking? And the reason I asked this is I posted the other day about LaMelo Ball missing a bunch of games and like worrying about, potentially having a chronic injury, and we'll get into that a little bit. And I got over probably 40 to 50 comment replies on X saying like, no, I'm not worried about LaMelo Ball's health because they're just tanking and not playing him because they don't want to win games. And like, there was quite a large portion of the fan base of some like pretty dedicated, well-knowledgeable fans who like generally believe they were holding out Brandon Miller and LaMelo Ball with injuries because they don't want the team to win games, and that they're playing the likes of, Salon and KJ Simpson extra minutes, and they're playing more rotation guys because they're not really putting together a competitive rotation. They're just putting people out there. Do you agree with that line of thinking?
So I want to align on the term tanking first off. Because like there's a thin line between like going youth and trying to lose on purpose, and I don't want to say the front office is like conspiring to lose games, but that has been the result, so it's hard to argue with. And considering that this is a really good draft, it only makes sense to do so, to hold out LaMelo, to hold out Brandon Miller, and to play the kids. And that being said, yes, I think the Hornets are tanking.
So you think that LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller, who just missed these games, Miller with the sprained ankle soreness, LaMelo Ball with the wrist and ankle soreness, you think that they could have played, but the team said to them, "We want you to rest it an extra 5, 6, 7, 8 days, because we don't want to win games. We're happy for you to kind of chill on the sidelines." You think that?
Yeah, because I think if this team was in the mix, they would have played. That's what I think.
Interesting.
Maybe not full games, maybe not full minutes, but I think they would have touched the floor if instead of being just a clear out like 24 hours ahead of time. I think if this team was in a competitive place, they would have played. And for that reason, I'd say they were intentionally rested because they're not trying to necessarily win right now.
Do you think any of that could sometimes be from the player side? Where it's not the team saying, "Hey, we don't want you to go out there," but it's the player saying, "Well, we're not going to do anything this year. Like you say, we're not playing for anything. Ankle's still a little sore. I need another game off."
Absolutely. Yeah.
So then that could be player side, right? That's not team tanking. That could be players who are not rushing themselves back.
Exactly. No, I 100% agree that players can take themselves out without any team involvement. I fully back that idea too.
I think I subscribe more to that theory than the first one. I just think this front office has to be so desperate to see as many games and minutes of LaMelo Ball, Mark Williams, Brandon Miller on the floor together, which they've had, I think, now two separate halves and one full game so far, that they would want these guys back on the floor as soon as they are healthy to do so. And like they're on a massive, 18 of 19 they've lost right now. Like the front office would just want to win a game. They don't want to be. There's losing, and then there's being embarrassed. Right. And there's a good way to tank, in my opinion. But yeah, I struggle. I just struggle to get that. I don't think the Hornets are holding Ball and Miller out while healthy. I think they were injured. I am really worried about LaMelo Ball's injuries, ankle and wrist soreness. He missed 10 days for that. He's not injured his wrist for like 2 years since having surgery on it when he broke it.
You're shooting a lot, man. That wrist gets sore when you put up on those buckets.
Well, his ankle soreness, again, I think it was on the foot, from what I understand, that he didn't have surgery on, but he sprained badly. But he didn't particularly sprain. It's not like he landed an ankle and he sprained an ankle. He just seems to be a guy who is suffering with soreness from injuries that he suffered literally years ago. And that is flashing at me like a red light, which I'm really worried about. And I feel like people are chalking that up to just tanking. And I'm like, no one cares now, but what if they were in the play-in hunt? What if we're in the playoffs and he's got ankle soreness or wrist soreness? Or if he did play, he goes 4 for 19 because he can't shoot properly because of his sore wrist. These are real concerns that I've got, when looking at the future of this. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope it is tanking. That would make me feel a lot better. And that's why I think a lot of fans talk themselves into it. Because they don't have to face the potential reality of no, there's issues here. By saying it's tanking, it makes it feel like it's part of the plan. It's all in part of Jeff Peterson's master plan. And I think people enjoy that reality more than the other one.
So I think a point in the tanking column is what they did in the draft. Taking Tajon Salon with a 6th overall pick, a clear project. I think that, for me, and a lot of people can get the idea of tanking in their mind instead of when they could have had more NBA ready. They could have drafted a different, more NBA ready player in that spot, right? Yeah. And when there isn't that sense of urgency on draft night, it shouldn't be a surprise that spills over into the season when things aren't going well. And so, yeah, man, I think you can look back and how we got here, and look at how they approach the draft night.
Yeah.
And
No, look, I made that point on draft night, I think probably, and I do subscribe to that the front office have the green light not to push for the playoffs. I think that's what that draft pick definitely signals.
And they dodged all of that. Like anytime that came up,
yeah,
like win totals, seed, whatever, they dodged all that talk.
I don't think they sat around the draft scouting table and said, we want to lose next year. Who's the highest upside prospect who will also be bad in the first year to help us lose games? And let's take that guy. Like, I don't think it will have been as crude as that.
Mm-hmm.
I think they probably had the green light to take the prospect they felt would be best in 4 or 5 years on this team, playing next to some high usage players, which they've already got in a draft where they didn't really need to go search for the guy because of the quality of the draft. And I think that's what they took. And it, like I say, it just happened to be someone who is super raw this year.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, interesting. So again, another topic we disagree on. We are 3 weeks away. We're out of sync, Sam. But it's fine. I like this. I like a mix of opinion. And I think it's good for listeners too.
I am all in on tanking, by the way, just for the record. I'm all for it. Tank, sag for flag. Run it.
Okay, let's move on to part 2 of a pod. 2026 predictions. These are going to be a little bit quicker, a little bit, not in so much depth as our storyline draft, but it is a new year. And I'm going to get started with my first prediction that this is rock bottom right now, this moment right now. Maybe after the maybe after this West Coast road trip we got coming up. But despite the struggles this team have gone through, they have future draft capital. They have LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller and Mark Williams, who are exciting young players on good contracts. And I am of the belief that we will look back in 2, 3, 4, 5 years and we will say that is the moment when it felt the worst. And it will be better moving forward in 2026 and beyond.
Okay. I thought you meant like they're going to turn around this year. Like this is the low point of this season.
No, this is the low point of the franchise.
Got it. Got you. Okay.
This is the low point of the Hornets. Of like this is the low point of the Hornets franchise.
Fair. Okay. I back it. I like it. Because I'm going to say it can't get worse. It can't. It could,
but I'm predicting it doesn't. Like, LaMelo Ball could break his other ankle tomorrow, and that's worse. But yes. I'm predicting this is the worst, how it is right now.
So, like, fast forward to April, or not April. Was it June? I got the NFL draft on my mind now. You walk away with top 5 pick.
Yeah.
LaMelo, Brandon Miller, Mark Williams. Grant Williams, maybe, coming off an injury. Trey Mann, maybe returns coming off an injury. Miles Bridges, whatever. Like, you can kind of see it. They can create cap space. They can get mixy if they want to.
I don't know if they can create cap space easily. They can't, really. With LaMelo Ball, Miles Bridges on the Bucks, that is like, unless you're moving Miles Bridges for an expiring.
Yeah, that's a part of it.
Or moving like Grant Williams for an expiring contract. There aren't many ways to cap space for this team. They've got too many mid-sized contracts. It's the Josh Greens, Grant Williams, those guys, Miles Bridges. They took quite a chunk of that cap.
We can get into my prediction because it kind of goes off this about the Hornets being a crazy active seller before the deadline for that reason, for cap reasons. I look at Micic, I look at Richards, Bridges, Cody Martin, or Josh Green. I think all those guys will be in rumors all up until 4 o'clock or whenever the deadline is on trade deadline day. And I think Micic makes the most sense to move But I think, let me back up a little bit. Going into the year, it seemed like the Wizards were setting themselves up to be the most active seller with bringing in all these veterans and even like potentially shopping Kuzma. I think the Hornets will give the Wizards a run for the money when it comes to being linked to guys out and being involved in 3-4 multi-team deals, whatever. I expect a very active trade deadline period for the Hornets.
I hope you're right. I do, because like, one, it's interesting, and two, I think that's what they should do. I think the worrying thing is I've not normally start to hear some of that buzz already, and like Jake Fisher, Mark Stein, Shams, Chris Haynes, none of them are really mentioning the Charlotte Hornets. They mention the Brooklyn Nets, mentioning the Miami Heat, even the Washington Wizards are getting mentioned, Valanciunas and the likes of that. But I've not seen many reports about the Hornets, and I think part of the reason that is Miles Bridges is just not playing well enough to have any trade value right now. So that's one. I think Nick Richards has some value, but like Micic as well, Cody Martin, they just strike me as like maybe like one such low trade value that it's going to be not all that impactful. But Nick Richards is the one, in my opinion. Maybe Josh Green, again, I don't think he's set the world alight. The problem is the players they would want to move off, none of them are playing that well. Unlike you look at Cam Johnson with the Brooklyn Nets, they want to move him and he's playing exceptionally well. So perfect. It's like what happened last year in some ways. You had like PJ Washington get moved. Terry Rozier was a great one, was playing really well last year. They moved him, turned into a pumpkin. Yeah. I think last year was the year where they were super active with the Hayward, Washington, Rozier trades. I just don't know if they've got the guys who've got that caliber of value anymore. I don't know. But I hope you're right. I really do.
So the one like wrinkle into the Bridges situation is that he's a clutch guy. And if he wants to move, they'll figure out a way to get him moved. And for me, like I don't know how much value he has anyway. But as a piece to move, whether it's a bunch of garbage and some second rounders, like whatever it is, if he wants out, I think he'll find a way to get out. I don't know if he said, he's been saying for years he wants to stay, but what's that even mean?
I think the new CBA with its trade restrictions around teams in the first and second apron, which basically half the league are in, it makes trading more difficult, especially for players making like 26, 27 million. Now he's on a declining contract, which is a big win. But like, the question is, do you want to trade get an even worse contract than Miles Bridges back? Right. I don't know if you can move Miles Bridges just for like expiring money right now. I don't know. It's still hard in this new CBA to kind of peg down value of everything, but Miles Bridges, one of my predictions was that it would be off the team because
at what point?
We technically put him
off the team at what point in the year?
At some point in 2026. I was covering, spreading my bets a little bit between the trade deadline, the draft, and free agency. Because, look, technically I know the basketball analyst in me says, well, we need to see him next to LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, and Mark Williams for a good period of time, 15, 20 games before you can make a judgment. But all I see is Miles Bridges is a guy who looks the most comfortable when he has the ball in his hand all the time, like he did the other night when, LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller have been out. He's had the ball and he's been handling it. And he had some big games and he looks most into the games when he's doing that. He looks most effective doing that. And then when he tries to play the complementary role player mode, he's just not good enough at those like role player parts of the game. And his shot has completely disappeared this year. Completely. And he's taking bad threes. This is the big thing with Miles. Like on spot up attempts, I think he's shooting 37% from three, which is fine. Problem is he's taking all off the dribble stuff, which you just can't get away from. And I'm not quite there yet, but I'm really close to saying that just like they need to find a way to get Miles Bridges off this team. Because I don't, from what I've seen so far, I don't see a world where he can be a complementary player next to that core three and for it to work. And at some point, everyone says they need change, right? Hornets, they need to change something. It's always the same. They've changed pretty much everything, Sam. the coach, the owners, the medical staff. Like, it's all changed. Half the roster changed from last year. Like, there's about 4 or 5 guys who came back. Like, at some point, if you need to change, there's not much left to change. Fans always demand change. There really isn't that much left to do, unless you want to change again, right? Change these people that only got brought in 6 months ago. But Miles Bridges is one person who could change, and
yes,
he needs to find a way to play well as a 3rd or 4th option in the rest of the season. And if he does not find that, they need to find a way to move off him for cap reasons, for competitive reasons. He needs to find a better fit, because I don't know if that's going to be in Charlotte. And I was wrong. I think I was wrong. Like, I was one of the guys saying that they should re-sign him, not to let the asset go away. You know, he sucks just to let an asset walk in free agency. I used the whole, well, you've not seen him play next to Miller, Ball, Williams enough to really make a judgment. We still haven't seen enough yet, but I'm more skeptical than ever.
Yeah, listen, you don't have to talk me into getting rid of him. This team, he's been on the team since 2018. Like, that's insane. Considering that, like, why continue? Considering how bad this team has been, why continue to bring any of that along? And honestly, it's not his fault that they won 39% of the Hornets win percentage since 2018 is 39%. So, like, having a piece of continuity from that era to now doesn't make any sense to me. And it only makes sense to move on completely from that era of the team, because when you look at everyone else, you're looking into the future. And by the time those guys and that team is ready, the guys from 2018, 2019, they'll be touching 30. And the clock's ticking when you're looking at athleticism and guys getting to the 30-year-old mark. You're not really part of the group anymore, the club anymore, you know? So, yeah, finding a way to move on from Bridges does make a lot of sense to me. And it'll become easier in the summer, to your point about the declining contract.
Oh, well, yeah.
And other teams will have more cap space to play with, and it just, things open up a lot more in the summer. But I'm really curious, because they were doing so many gymnastic like moves when that first year when he wasn't playing. Woj was dropping all of these things, trying to kind of force the Hornets' hand, where he's going to return in March, or the Christmas Eve thing, or it was Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. It was like the Friday before Christmas. Miles Bridges wants to come back, then boom, he's sitting courtside that night when the Hornets are playing in Los Angeles. Like, they were in their bag of tricks during that point. So I'm just curious if we'll see more of that. I know Woj isn't around, and Woj was tight with Clutch and all that stuff, but like, I don't know if we'll see that to that level again, but it's just something to monitor, because they seem to be really trying to orchestrate something that time. And I don't know why they wouldn't do it again if he wants to move, since he's been paid. He got his money. Why continue to lose games here?
Yeah. All right, Sam, give me next of your 2026 predictions.
I think that this team finishes with the worst record in the Eastern Conference.
Wow. Washington Wizards failed to tank. God.
We got one more game against the Wizards, I think. So that should be on national television. Put that on TNT. But
the worst team. Wow. Okay.
Bottom of the East. Bottom of the East.
Is this because you don't think people are going to play, or you think they're just that bad?
Yes. Yes. Yes to both. I think guys going to be sitting out. Guys going to be gone. And they're headed to the bottom of the East just to and they're going to end up maximizing their chances lottery night. Because there's some nonsense going on in the Western Conference too. So I'm not saying the worst team in the league, but the worst record in the East. I think they're headed for that direction.
Yeah, it's in play. I can't lie. It's in play. I'm not ruling anything out. Could happen. Especially depending what moves they make at the deadline. And if their injury luck remains the same as it has this far, then it's definitely in play. You'd expect some positive regression there. But I think we've seen enough now that this Hornets team does not have the grit and fight to claw all the way through to game 82. I think we're pretty certain of that by this point.
Definitely.
So.
And I didn't think I thought this team was I thought they were a bunch of fighters this year, man. Like the way this season started, the way they were competing, I didn't expect to be at this stage in January.
I agree. I think some of those players aren't playing because of injuries with Trey Mann and Grant Williams. I think that's hurt it. I think Tijan Salon, a guy probably is a fighter. Taj Gibson is a fighter, but again, you're talking about guys who like playing really minor roles. At some point, you've got to come back and look at the higher usage, more featured guys. Yeah, and I mean, LaMelo Ball the other night to me in that Cavs game looks more bothered about going up against Darius Garland and showing him he's an all-star than he was about, his team winning the game, which was a bit disappointing to me.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to go next. I'm going to say that Charlotte's first-round pick from Miami, which they got in the Terry Rozier trade, is going to become unprotected in 2028, right? And the background to this is that if Miami reaches the playoffs this year, they send their first-round pick to the Oklahoma City Thunder. Because of various NBA rules, it's called the step-in rule. It's about what draft picks you can trade and what you can't. That means that the pick the Hornets receive in 2027 from Miami, I think is lottery protected, right? Mm-hmm. Now, if the Miami Heat miss the playoffs this year, it means that they will keep their own first-round pick, which you think sounds good for Miami at first, but it means that they will send next year's first-round pick to Oklahoma City. And then it means that the Hornets pick goes back to 2028 and it becomes unprotected. And unprotected first-round picks in the NBA are very, very rarely traded, especially for a team that isn't right at the top of the league in terms of competing. And that could be one of the better draft assets which has been traded in the NBA at that point. Like, because Miami, I don't quite know where they're going. Right. They always seem to pull something out of the hat, and they're always competitive. But, like, is Spoelstra still going to be there in 2028? Like, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, where are you going with those two being your best players? So, something to keep an eye on. If Miami don't make the playoffs this year, that is a good thing for Charlotte's future draft pick, in my opinion. Gives it way bigger upside. That pick could end up being a game-changing pick versus being a mid to late first-round pick in 2027, which would be less powerful.
That's why the Jimmy Butler situation is so interesting for Hornets fans.
Yes. Sorry, I buried the lead. Yes. This is all because Jimmy Butler might be disappearing on the Miami Heat. Absolutely.
The Mavericks, unrelated, but kind of related. The Mavericks pick, is that 2027 too? I think so.
I think so.
It's top two. I mean, it's top two protected. So, like,
yeah,
I doubt the Mavericks going to be in that. So that's coming to Charlotte.
Maybe, but I saw today Kyrie Irving herniated disc. He's out. Luka Doncic injured his calf, and he's going around on a scooter right now. So I've got no problem with the Mavericks piling up some long-term injuries that could put some, put some extra wear on those bones and joints of Luka and Kyrie. That wouldn't be a bad thing for Charlotte either.
So there's a world where the Hornets get their act together. They become at minimum, middle table team. Mm-hmm. And they have first-round picks to burn and could go out and get somebody. That's a world we don't live in currently. But
it's an idealist world.
It's in play. We're
but
not there now,
world. Yeah.
But it can happen.
Yeah. Okay, give me another one of yours. Give me another prediction.
My last one is LaMelo Ball related. Keeping it on theme here. He's on pace to play 55 games. At this rate he's been. I don't think he cracks 60. That's it. I think I'm just tripling it down on this.
Take the under.
Yeah, I'm just tripling down on this, man. It's not looking good. I think Hornets are barreling towards the bottom 3 of the league just to get into that 25%. Is it 25%? And just to maximize their draft lottery odds and see what happens after that. Maybe they get lucky. Maybe they don't. Probably won't. Just given how things happen in Charlotte. But yeah, I think LaMelo gets shut down and doesn't crack 60 games this year.
Yeah, I can see that happening. I'd probably agree with you on that as well. I would take that. This will make you a happy moment for all Hornets fans. And it was brief, but I want everyone to remember. I want everyone to close their eyes right now and think about.
I'm gonna do it too. I'm closing my eyes too.
Okay. It was the draft lottery in 2023. The advert comes. The Hornets are in contention for a top 4 pick in the draft. And they get down to the final 2. And the first overall pick gets Victor Wembanyama. And before that envelope got opened, you can't help but feel smiley and excited because Victor Wembanyama could have been in Charlotte. The NBA owes us.
I thought for sure they're going to do MJ a solid that year. And like, listen, we know you're dipping out of here. One last thank you. Here's Wemby. Up the value of the team and get on out. Nope.
No. Okay, my next one. I'm going to. This is really bold. Greens for Swarm make the G League playoffs. No, okay. Not really. I'm going to go for a more relevant one. I'm going to say. This is too early, but I'm going to say it. It's too early. I shouldn't be doing this. T. John Salon, it's not going to pan out. I see a lot of Bismack Biyombo career path. Long time NBA player. Mm-hmm. Great attitude, great approach, but like the holes in his game are so big. Like even if there is improvement, I just don't know, man. Like it's I believe in the shot. I think the shot is not the issue, even though the percentages aren't great. And the defense, I think, is good enough, and the rebounding. It's just everything else. The finishing and decision-making, the passing, the feel for the game, the touch is far from being NBA level. And he's like the youngest guy in the NBA. And I was the guy who for years was saying, like, you can't judge Kai Jones after year 1. You can't judge Kai Jones after year 2. He was a project. We have to wait. And I stayed on the wagon too long. And I made a little note to myself in my black book that just because someone is young and has potential, it doesn't mean that you just can't criticize them for 2 to 3 years. And yeah, I knew it was going to be rough. I thought it would be. That's why I'm surprised it took him so high. But that's one of my predictions, is that by the end of this year, we could be looking back going, the Hornets really took T. John Salon at 6.
Yeah. It would mimic perfectly what a lot of people are saying on draft night. Like, it'd just be full circle, fully.
Yeah, it would. It would.
I mean, listen, like, I think both outcomes are very much in play, honestly. Like, I think you can flip a coin and he could be a full-on bust and out the league in 3 years, or a really like serviceable role player. I think that's probably the ceiling of it, given what we've seen so far, and which is great. Like, you can make a lot of money for a long time being a serviceable role player, and that's what the Hornets need, more of these guys that can do that, like 3-and-D dudes. But yeah, man, like by the time this season's over, I want to see like what does he excel at, and like everything is just kind of like, I think the shot is okay and the defense is okay, but I don't know he's like really excelling at anything. Something that you can like say like, all right, check, got that done. Year 2, what can he accomplish at that point? Then after 4 or 5 years, you're kind of piecing together what kind of player he is, and that because at that point he'll be like 23 years old, and like, all right, now go time, Salon. We know where you fit into the grand scheme of things. What guys fit best around you? Are you better as a starter or bench guy? What does it take to get you going and get you hot in the game? I hope to learn all that stuff, but I don't know, man. I think you're completely valid for having that opinion, and it's a bold choice by Jeff Peterson, something that he's gonna have to really stand on because that was his first pick as GM here, and
Super
it's a
brave.
risky one. It's
It
a very
was.
risky one.
It was absolutely like very risky. I agree. All right, give me one more prediction. We're running long today, but we are spoken in 3 weeks. There's a lot to cover. Let's give it one more.
Oh man. Okay. This is. I think Trey Mann stays. I think he's on the roster next year.
I agree.
But I have no idea how much money, and I know I would want him between 10 and 13 million, somewhere in there. Especially if this injury continues, because it's not good practice to pay guys who have serious injuries. So like,
Especially
I like
back.
Trey. Yeah, I like Trey Mann a lot. I think this team severely misses him, and I think he could be a valuable piece in the backcourt going forward. But the number is going to be really key. And to the Hornets' favor, it's kind of working. This is kind of working out in the Hornets' favor with him being out for this long. He's not running the price up. You know what I mean? So he's shown flashes, killed in the summer league, really good start of the year, and hopefully when he gets back, he picks up right where he left off, and the Hornets may have to pay him. But right now, I look at him as like a 10 to 13 million a year guy.
That sounds about right. That's like mid-level exception kind of money. I think I'm probably with you there. You could maybe, again, like depending how he plays when he comes back, you can maybe argue like a little bit more. But no, I think that's fair. 10 to 15 million.
Like 15 at the ceiling, at the high end.
Yeah, I think so. I get if he comes back and plays at the same level. If he comes back and plays worse, then that can go down to like 8, 9 as the basement. My last one. This isn't maybe an interesting one to keep an eye on. I'm a little worried that Amen Thompson is going to overtake Brandon Miller in the eyes of the NBA. NBA analysts, fans, podcasts, articles, personalities, TV. There's a lot of Amen Thompson buzz right now, and he's on a team that's playing well. They're competitive. He's playing exceptionally well on both ends. And Brandon Miller's this year has been like ho-hum. There has been growth if you like deep dive into it, but you could also say it's kind of been inefficient. And on defense, he's been like average, I would say, compared to Amen Thompson, who's been a beast and is finding ways to score even though he can't shoot. So I'm a little worried about that one because we're all feeling very good about the Brandon Miller pick last year, and I feel like Amen Thompson is, if you did a redraft now, I think there'll be people out there in the NBA media sphere who would take Amen Thompson ahead of Brandon Miller.
I mean, it's a what have you done for me lately type of thing.
It is. Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. It's like
who's impacting winning? You know, they'll have that discussion and they'll look at the win-loss records, and they'll miss out a bunch of important context. But
if you're drafting for the Hornets, Thompson, I don't think Thompson's a better fit than Miller. If like Houston had the second pick, do they take Miller over Thompson? Like I think Thompson works for what they have, but I don't know if Charlotte's actually making the pick, if Thompson's a better fit than Miller.
Yeah, I think it's I agree. I agree. I think Brandon Miller in Charlotte next to a ball handler. I mean, Amen Thompson's handling the ball a little bit more now, and he's getting opportunity because of injuries, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, a little worried about that one. I don't want to start seeing, Brandon Miller slander nationally. That was the one good thing we had last year, is there was universal praise for Brandon Miller, and
true.
That's beginning to get quieter.
Yeah, man. Like I'm happy that we can enjoy Brandon Miller. If the rest of the world doesn't want to enjoy it, that's on them. It's just for us then. For now, we'll feel like basketball hipsters watching Brandon Miller play when no one else is.
All right, Sam. That's going to do it for this week. We got through a lot today. A lot of topics on. Hour 20. That's long for us. We're normally over and out in 60 minutes. I'm not going to ask you to do any more win predictions after another 5-10 games. Let's leave that till next year. I said this before the pod, between last year's Christmas break for the podcast and this year's Christmas break, I think the Hornets went 0-19 over 2 years. The Hornets hate Christmas.
For the record, January 15th at Utah, Hornets W confirmed. I'm calling it now. I don't know what happens around it. If the losing streak continues up until that date, it ends that date.
Well,
January 15th, lock in.
Okay. Jazz been playing better lately. I will bring that back up on not next week's episode, but the one after. But Sam, thank you very much for joining me this week.
Yes, sir.
And thank you, listeners, for tuning in. You'll find us on YouTube or Hornets on SI podcast. You'll find us on X, Sam Dracula, James Plowright, and we will see you next week.